You're now tuned into the Real Rap Radio Show. I'm your host, Walil Archer on Down to Hot Radio. I'm a special guest today, Brett Eagleson. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Well, Lil, thanks for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. I'm so glad you're able to join me today.
Yeah, I've got quite a story to tell. Let me tell you.
Yes, I'm listening. I'm looking forward to it, and the listener is ready to hear it. Let's start off with the name of your book.
So the name of the book is The Mormon Mafia and Me. With me actually standing for my father's initials, Max Eliason, because he was a true victim of this crime, as is my whole family. But this was primarily written concerning my father, who recently passed away. And I actually published this book the day that he was buried. So it was kind of a sad, bittersweet. He never got to read the book, but that's life.
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah, it was a long battle, but the story I'm about to tell you will just shock you, and you'll realize that he was treated so poorly in his last years by those he was supposed to trust. You know, my story. I want you to imagine you call 911 and nobody comes, and when they do come, they come and arrest you. I mean, as you'll hear this story, it's literally what happened. Nobody wants to believe me, but nobody can prove me wrong. I did not want to be an author. I didn't write this to make any money. In fact, if I could, well, I would literally push on a button and send an electronic copy to every person in the world because they should hear this. This is corruption defined. This is hypocrisy. This is the people that are leading the country and the church who are exposed with their pants down, so to speak, and nobody's doing anything about it. But to start off the story, I need to go all the way back to 2013. My mom was diagnosed with lung cancer in May of 2013, and my father was starting to show early signs of dementia. So my sister and her husband, who's a CPA, literally made a deal with one of the attorneys of the law firm of the LDS Church named Curtin McConkie. So here they were assigned with an attorney named Craig McCullough, and I make no apologies for calling these people out. I will try to decimate their character and destroy their livelihood for the rest of my life. And I do not fear any retribution because they have to prove that what I say is wrong. But so he was introduced to my parents as their attorney, as my parents' attorney. They were supposed to be representing him. My parents were the ones that were paying them. And here Craig McCullough was literally representing my sister and her husband the entire time. And their estate plan was, I'm going to steal a $250 million portfolio from my parents and my in-laws. So they got going on this. I mean, what could be worse than betraying the trust of an 84-year-old couple, both of which are suffering ailments? I mean, our society should be protecting both infants and the elderly, but you'll see this is far from the case. So fast forward to 2015, they came to my parents and said, "Hey, you should have this family trust." And which my parents didn't need. It was literally their wishes were 33-33 to the three children upon their death. And so here comes this trust that they said, oh, for tax purposes, this is the best thing, which is a lie. But within those documents is a paragraph that literally gives the attorney the right to make himself a beneficiary. So imagine if you walk into the bank, because my parents literally looked at this as the bank of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They've been faithful members of the church for their entire lives, as have all my ancestors. They looked at this place like their money could not be safer due to the relationship with the church. So this law firm was just an extension of the church for them. But imagine walking in to a law firm and giving a document, and say it's a deposit account, because there's no difference here, because it gave him control of the entire estate, rich in oil properties and real estate. And here the client signs a document that says, yeah, this is me. I'm the owner of this account. And as soon as that client walks out of the bank, the bank manager, in this case the lawyer, rips off the top pages. I can prove that they did because the run numbers on the bottom are not the same. So he ripped off the top of the document they had signed and put on his own things, and it said, I have the right to, it literally says, Craig McCullough has the right to create any beneficiaries of his choosing and can distribute anything he wants. That one paragraph gave him and the law firm the right to steal everything my parents have. So this is in 2015. And so let me pause for a second here. I was a banker for 17 years. I was a vice president of Zion's Bank, which is a local bank here, also tied with the LDS Church. As a relationship manager, I was audited like every 6 months. I mean, it was the state and the feds that would come in. You think about the FDIC insurance up to $100,000. There is no such thing as FDIC insurance. There's no trust insurance. There's nobody that looks at what these guys did. So here you're blocked at 100,000 for reasons of liability with the bank, and this guy takes on a $250 million estate, for which he doesn't even have to show anybody the documents that were signed. As part of my entire crusade here, so to speak, the movement that I'm making, I want people to demand their lawmakers to pass laws that say, hey, there has to be 2 or 3 eyes. There has to be dual control of any kind of a state like this, because this is just putting way too much power in somebody's hands. But so that's in 2015. Over the next 3 years, these people would go on and create a web of 15 different trusts, none of which my parents knew about. And here they've moved tens of millions of dollars of oil properties out of the company, which I own 33% of, and they stick them in these trusts, which are all being funded by embezzled assets. So, we've got to talk about how many felony crimes are being committed here. You've got bribery already. You've already got theft. You've got embezzlement. You'll see there's insurance fraud. There's wire fraud, insurance fraud. The list goes on. I can come up with 50 easily. So my mother died on May 18th of 2018. And, as my father and I would have expected, the law firm would have contacted them and said, well, here's what we've done with your wife's assets. They were supposed to go to my father, as most states would, and they pulled us into a side room, and there's a senior partner there named Tom Meek, a member of the board of directors, who pulls us into the side room and says, literally word for word, we are sorry we are meeting under these conditions. I am sorry we are meeting under these conditions, but we have an undisclosed conflict of interest, and we do not represent you. You are now considered an adversarial person, and we do not want you in our law firm anymore. I mean, here's my dad, who's been paying what would prove to be millions of dollars to this law firm, and they look him in the eyes and say, we never represented you or your wife. So you could imagine. And so he tells me to go get $200,000 out of his account and engage this other law firm in the city here. Because they realized right away, they saw it within 5 minutes and said, this is criminal. This is jail time for Craig McCullough. And they had drained every dollar out of they left him with $5,000 in his checking account, and they drained $6 million out of the trust accounts. So you can imagine his face, and he was demanding a meeting with these guys. Well, what will prove to show that the judges were all involved in this conspiracy to cover all this up and to abuse and exploit vulnerable adults. They go to court and have him deemed incompetent due to his saying his dementia had advanced, which was not true. He was an attorney by profession, a corporate attorney, and knew very well how to defend himself. So what they did was go down to a judge in probate and say, Max Eliason can no longer take care of his finances or himself, and we demand that he be deemed incompetent. And they gave my sister complete control of his estate. And they proceeded at that point in time to go to Adult Protective Services. Now they had to get me out of the picture as well, because they knew I was storming furious and trying to find attorneys and showing up at their door. And they went to Adult Protective Services and filed complaints against me personally, saying I was abusing him. I was the one that was financially going after him. I was emotionally abusing him, when in reality they had already stolen everything. So it's one of those cases where they accuse you of what they have done. A lot of gaslighting going on here. And so they got an order from the court that said I no longer had the right to see my father. So here, this was in 2018, and this was in February of 2019, and they went on. I mean, this is the most disgusting and filthiest crime that they could have committed. They said, well, you can visit him for 45 minutes once a month, provided a police officer and one of your family members come with you. I pull up, they've changed the locks on the house, of which I own 33%, which my father was living in. There's video cameras everywhere. I mean, they called the police several times, and all I wanted to do was go in with my wife and daughters and spend some time with my dad. This went on for 6 solid years, where they were denying me my right to see him on his birthday, on Christmas, on any holiday, Father's Day even, I couldn't see him. This was 6 years, and I'm begging with the court. I'm going in, filing motions to compel these people to let me on my own property. Now, keep in mind, these attorneys are being paid with my money. They are supposed to be representing me. They have that undisclosed conflict of interest, which they spoke of. And how bad is it for a son to be deprived of the right to see his father and vice versa? My dad didn't see me. And, he before I go on with the story, he died on October 23rd of 2024. And they came and said, your father's dying. And I pled with them to give me just 4 hours to say goodbye to him. And, I can prove that he was being morphined to death. My mother was morphined to death. She never had a prescription for morphine, and yet here she died of a morphine overdose. But nobody wants to look at murder here, because that would really be a cover-up. These people went to such limits of depravity, I can't even tell you. So not only did they refuse me the right to see him, they sent me an email that said, you were prohibited from seeing your father until further notice. This was the day after they said he was dying. And they then said, you will be considered to be trespassing and stalking. And, when you think about it, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, my dad's supposedly comatose? I don't even know what condition he's in. And what do you think I'm going to do? Walk into his bedroom, steal his wallet, slap him around a little bit so that he'll never forget the lesson I want to teach him on his way out? I mean, just absurd. These people went to the point of, here's a trust document, Walil, that says that if I am deemed incapacitated in any way, then I'm no longer a trustee of my own trust. So they went on to tell everybody in the entire family. They spread lies and rumors and said I was drunk and all of a sudden criminally going after these people and threatening them. But it says they all of a sudden just deemed me that I was no longer a trustee. They removed me as an owner of my own properties, without any authority to do so, obviously. I mean, it's like somebody walks into your house and steals everything from you, steals your stock in the background. I mean, it's that. But there was a phrase in there that said, if you and your wife are divorced, then she will not be the trustee in my place, because under the terms of the original trust, which was fraudulent, it said that if I got a divorce from Veronique, which we've been married for 36 years, she would be treated as if she had preceded my parents in death, meaning she had no rights to anything. So here we're going along, and there you'll see there are in my book, I explain there were several people that were helping me open up a company with my mom, which failed because of these people. But there was a gentleman named Zant Doty who I let stay with me because he needed a place to stay and he was helping me. Little did I know he was in constant contact with my brother-in-law. I mean, I found his phone records. So he was kind of a plant in my life. I mean, a paid actor to come in and destroy my life. He got into my computer, went and found all my financial information, and he mistakenly left a stack of his papers one day in my office, in my bedroom, and on the top was a divorce decree. So if me and Veronique were divorced, obviously, she couldn't step in. Imagine going to imagine this is you and you're married and you walk in and you see documents that have been sent to court, ratified by a judge, and it says you're divorced. I mean, I looked at my wife and we went to the courthouse, and sure enough, this was a document. Um, and think about going into a court if you get the chance to have a hearing or a jury trial, of which I've been denied over all these 6 years. And you stand in front of the judge and you say, this man unlawfully divorced me and my wife. I mean, it's a joke. I never even would have dreamed that crime existed, and I've never heard of it before in my life. But to interject here, as soon as this law firm, Tom Meekum, back in 2018, told me that they had this undisclosed conflict of interest, I had no money to engage another attorney. And what will show, even if I did, no one would represent me in the state of Utah, because this was going straight after the LDS Church. And this lawsuit would destroy them. I'll get into that in a minute. But so here I go in there and I file with this is the United States District Court for the District of Utah. We have a chief judge in Utah named Robert Shelby. This was filed under RICO. The civil RICO filings are literally created so that an individual like me can go in and say corruption in the police force, corruption in with the judges, corruption with the attorneys. And, there's supposed to be one honest judge that will step in. I filed over 40 cases over the next 6 years by myself. I've got a great legal background, and I'm currently enrolled for law school, but believe me, I know my laws very well concerning estate planning and how to file documents and whatnot, because I filed tens of thousands of pages as evidence. Not one judge over all that time would respond to any of my demands for a hearing, for a jury trial, for accounting. Think about it. All I'm asking for, I'm not asking for a fortune, which the damages in this will be so astronomical, as I'll tell you. I'm not asking for a dime of taxpayers or tithe payers' money. I want $1, and I want accounting, and I just want them to return my parents' estate to the condition it was in, as per law. And you might say, well, what would be the motivation for these attorneys and these judges to turn against someone like me and my family? Let me tell you a little bit about the laws regarding this type of activity, these RICO crimes, this pure racketeering. And even if it was just one crime of bribery or fraud, this attorney, Craig McCullough, he's a senior partner. So in this type of breach of fiduciary duty contestation that I'm going through, he would be charged automatically triple damages. So here's $250 million missing. It would be the largest theft in U.S. history. $250 million are missing. He automatically owes me $750 million. But so does each of the other defendants. So there's my sister, yada, yada, my brother-in-law, and, it goes much further. But it's not only Craig McCullough that owes that $750 million. And by the way, that's for one crime. I've identified over 50. Every single one of the 159 senior partners of Kurt McConkie are also charged with that amount. So you're over $100 billion for one crime already. So you can imagine the law firm gets hit with that. But to make this worse, the LDS Church, there's a man in charge. He's the next prophet of the LDS Church named Dallin Oaks. Now, Dallin has been, if you look at his background, he was a CIA operative under the Bush administration. He was an FBI recruiter when he was the president of BYU. The guy has ties to the secret societies, and I have a very strong argument that shows this guy was put into place for that purpose. But anyway, this guy was a former Utah Supreme Court judge specializing in estate planning. He knows his stuff, and he was the president of the board of directors when this was happening. I made plea after plea to this guy to step in. And boy, when he stepped in, it was retaliation 101. I mean, he evicted me from my own home. This is another story, in the middle of a snowstorm in February here I've got a document that says I own the home, but when judges turn against you, boy, it's look out. But with that, he had blessed this law firm when it opened and called them the lawyers of Jesus Christ himself. And he dedicated that law office as if it was an LDS temple. I mean, they had their whole ceremony. They tossed white handkerchiefs in the air. I mean, it literally makes my parents think, well, geez, this place is like a holy ground for people that need to have their estate planning done. Anytime you do that, you are bringing corporate liability against the parent company. So every dollar that is not paid by Kurt and McConkie, and they probably don't have any money sitting on their balance sheet because partners usually take the draws. Every dollar that's not paid becomes a responsibility of the LDS Church. So here, the LDS Church was discovered back in 2020 to have an investment account with $200 billion in it, showing that they're really not doing with the tithes and offerings what the members think they're doing. And here's $200 billion sitting there. It's not taxed, and the IRS only gave him a $5 million penalty and let him keep all the money. But so you can imagine in less if this case had justice, if justice were served, even though I'm saying all I want is $1 in my estate back, I'm not trying to beat Elon Musk in wealth. I don't even, I wouldn't even go there because the destruction to so many people would be too great. But they can't just settle with me, knowing of this story. And they can't just they have to enforce justice if they give me a jury trial or anything, because how is it that you would walk into a court and they say, well, you're entitled to $200 billion, but since you're only asking for $1, that's all we're going to give you, when this should be charged criminally. This is not a civil matter. They should have had the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland at the time, step in and try this as it should be. But this would cause the demise of the LDS Church. These people, you think about it, the hypocrisy is so great, and it's justice for some in this world. This is the wealthy who are getting away with murder. Literally, this is the elite that say, well, you're not guilty. Even though the judges are literally committing crimes far worse than 95% of those who are being incarcerated. And this is coming from the highest leaders. This should shake any person that's hearing this. This should cause shock and awe as to how corrupt these people are. This is the entire Department of Justice. Merrick Garland was served in this case. His only boss was Joe Biden. So he gets served with this, a complaint against the United States Department of Justice, a demand that this be charged criminally, doesn't even respond. Not one of these people have ever been forced to respond. So you think of fighting 40 cases, the church, I've gone after the governor, I've gone against U.S. district court judges, all listed as defendants, and all rightfully so. They have no defense. Not one of them has been forced to respond. So imagine if I file a lawsuit against you or you against me. If I don't respond in 21 days, I'm guilty. And this is just for statutory accounting. They're supposed to provide this accounting by law. But I will not find justice. At this point in time, you can imagine if they have to go back for over a decade and account for every drop of oil which has been stolen. But so in the meantime, my family and I are roadkill. We fear for our lives. I mean, here are my parents. I can prove they were murdered. And the sad part is, if something happens to me, as I'm going to scream every day for the rest of my life. Not only am I writing books, I've bought billboards. I'm sending out postcards to everybody in the state of Utah. I'm into this over 200 grand right now, just trying to get my story out there. But there's no way I'm going to get justice unless powers that be intervene, or if I can have enough exposure from podcasts like yours that my story is told. I set up a website called themormonmafiaandme.com, and my story's on there. You can purchase a book. If you email me, I will gladly send you an electronic copy for free. So, getting back to my dad, I'll start to end it on this. Now think about this. My dad's dead, and I say, I want an autopsy because I knew there was morphine. they wouldn't tell me a funeral date. So I went to my mom's um, plot where she was her grave on Halloween of last year. So my dad had been dead a couple of days, and I was just there to sit and enjoy space with my mom and reflect over my father's life. And he was buried. Nobody even told me that there was going to be that there was no funeral. There was no viewing. Here, my dad was a prominent person in the community. Hundreds of people loved him to death. They all would, my extended family, all would have loved to attend a funeral. But I asked for an autopsy, and they slam him in the ground basically while his body's still warm. These people that I'm naming in my book, and I've got all of the evidence I need to put them in jail for 1,000 years, 50 crimes, 20 years each. The Attorney General of the United States, the President of the United States, Joe Biden was sent, many times this case, but he was a little bit cognitively impaired. But this is corruption at such a level that it would shut down the entire church in the state. And why shouldn't it? Why is anybody above the law? I mean, this would be the ideal moment to open up this scam that's going on, and maybe get some honest people being put into place that aren't favoring the rich instead of the needy. But to leave it, I know we're getting short and on time.
We have about 2 minutes left.
Yeah, okay. But my message, what am I trying to accomplish? As I mentioned, legislation. I want legislation enacted to stop this sort of thing. And when a civilian like me shows up in court and pleads for justice, that there are judges that will ensure this. There's not one person in the entire United States that I can contact who will help me. And even if I found an attorney, the judges are against this, so it'll never happen. But I hope that if you're listening to this and you know anybody in power or authority in any way, that you will contact them, tell them my story. Um, like I say, send me. I have an email set up at helpmefightsleaze@gmail.com, and I will gladly send you an electronic copy of this. There's a free ebook and whatnot. So I leave it with that. Well, I don't know. I hope I communicated everything. I only need one document to prove them wrong. This is a document that says we represent Max and Joyce Eliason, and if they die, you come to us. That one document, if you ask Kurt and McConkey if that's true or not, and they say yes, well, they're lying because they say they don't. And if they say no, well, who the hell prepared these documents? So they can't answer a yes or no question without dozens of judges, attorneys, and corrupt politicians going to jail. So the largest settlement in U.S. history solved by a summary judgment. So, I hope it makes people think.
We'd like to thank you for sharing your story today,
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
and I hope everything works out for you.
Thank you.
So that's my time today on the Real Rap Radio Show. And I'll see you guys next time on the Real Rap Radio Show with Walil Archer on Downtown Radio. Peace and blessings, everyone.